Hey everybody, welcome back. We're here in Anguilla in the Piper Dakota. This is the latest Sim Update 3 beta version 1.5.25 and the latest NVIDIA driver 580.97. We're going to take a look at both of those today. We'll talk about some of the things that I've noticed in the latest beta update. And right across from us right there is the Cessna 337. That is one of the only twin engine airplanes in the world that you can get a twin engine rating to fly that airplane with only that airplane, because that is called inline thrust. It's got a front, a normal engine right here, so to speak, and a reverse pusher engine in the back, and that's inline thrust. So it's really kind of an interesting airplane. But in any event, I did a video for the previous beta 1.5.24 in the Phoenix the other day because people had asked me to do that, and I'm glad to do things that people are interested in. But rotating beacon on, we'll go mixture and prop full forward, and you got to push the prop full forward here with the mouse. We'll go master and battery switches on. We'll open the fuel valve so we don't make a fool of ourselves. We'll crack the throttle. And can I use the fuel pump in this with my Bravo? No. Okay, so we'll turn the fuel pump on. And we'll take a look outside, make sure there's nobody out there to kill or mate. What on earth is going on there? Alright, toes on the brakes. And there we go. And you just want to make sure, see that RPM jumping up to 1500 right there. That's one thing you want to watch when you start an engine, to make sure the throttle doesn't run on you, because the checklist in the Cherokee says to crack your throttle 1/4 inch. And I mean, you're just guesstimating, and sometimes you'll crack it and or think you have it cracked. Let's see, oil pressure is good. Sometimes you'll think you have it cracked. Fuel pressure, or fuel pump off, fuel pressure is good. And you'll start the engine and it'll be at 1700 RPM, and believe me, it doesn't seem like that much in the sim, but in real life, if you start a piston engine and it's like 1700 RPM, it's it's quite a feeling, and it's uncomfortable, it's awkward. That's not correct when you're doing it. I mean, it just feels funny. And you'll yank that throttle back, pretty. The real airplanes, test our brakes here. Real airplanes really they'll shudder and shake if you've got the brakes set. Like when you're doing an engine run up, the plane really moves, because it's generating so much power, and that air that it's pushing back is going over the flight control surfaces, and the wings and stuff. So it's definitely, the airplane will get dancing a little bit for you. I've been kind of toying around with this video. We're going to go landing light on. I'm not going to do a run up just because I don't want to do it too long. I may do a short version of this video and a long version of this video, just because I don't know, some people prefer shorter videos. I don't know, I think too much sometimes. Try to please everybody with requests that people make and so on, and I try to bring value. I try to bring good information. I mean, I never used to put performance information on the screen because I just don't care. What I'm looking for is a smooth, smooth performance. And I don't really care if I'm getting 58 FPS or 61. Doesn't matter to me. You know, and I've gotten into, you know, more data-driven kind of stuff. So we'll go mixture and prop full forward. Fuel pump is on. 1 notch of flaps. Heading indicator checks with the runway number. Takeoff power is coming in. You never want to delay on a runway. Don't sit there goofing around. When you're ready to go, go. You also have to be ready to go. Here's airspeed alive. Engine instruments are in the green. Kamikaze truck in the middle of the runway. A little bit of a weird wind because of Hurricane Aaron, which is over in that direction. The wind is a little bit unusual. Alright. The wind is a little bit unusual. The nose a little bit. Go flaps up. We'll go fuel pump off at 1,000 feet. And I'm gonna stay right at 1,000 feet. I'm also gonna turn my transponder on. What the heck, right? So, okay. It's just like weird head movement here. So yes, I'm not like discounting what people. I can't discount what people are interested in seeing because that's the whole point of what we do. But at the same time, I think you know, most people know my channel well enough by now that you kind of know what you're getting and what you're not getting, you know. And I had somebody comment today on one of my older videos that they were sad for me because I spend so much time tinkering and not flying, and I get that. Like it's true to an extent. I've definitely had periods in the last 6 months where I've felt that way. I think it's more likely. I think I'm more likely to feel that way when I have less time to sim, because that means, you know, I'm either gonna fly for you know, fun, or I'm gonna, you know, take the time that I do have to be able to, you know, make some videos and do some stuff for you guys. And that's kind of what I tend to do. Given the choice, I'll sort of lean towards doing stuff for the channel as opposed to just horsing around for my own entertainment. But what I really try to do is combine the two and do things that I enjoy, like flights that I enjoy, like this. I could do this every day, you know, bopping around Anguilla, St. Maarten. You know, combine that with stuff that's hopefully interesting for you guys. And I've got some interesting things that I'm working on. So I have to admit that once I've gotten a little bit into the data, I do find it interesting. Like, I mean, you can see VRAM, you know, and that's obviously a big thing for a lot of people performance wise, and you know, main thread stuff, CPU spikes and so on and so forth. I'm going to talk a little bit more about one of the things that I think is going on once we get out of St. Maarten here, because I'm going to have to start getting ready for flying into St. Maarten. But you get a lot of comments, a lot of stuff about, and a lot of, you know, people talking in the official forums and so on about VRAM issues. Mixture is full forward. Live traffic and weather set. So I'm gonna come right down to 1500 or 15 inches rather, and 2200 RPM. And I think that a lot of people are looking everywhere but the most obvious place for especially GPU issues. I want to bug your heading indicator to your runway number. That way I know I'm on a left base. When that, see, I've got the runway bugged. That's the runway. And when I have that right on this left hash here, I know that I'm on a good base leg. And I'm also pulling my nose up like crazy. That wasn't too smooth. So here's what I've got an idea for you guys. This is another thing that people talk to me about all the time. Why don't you do side slips? You know why? Because I don't like doing side slips. I don't like doing side slips in real life. And I fly in the sim like I fly in real life. So therefore, I'm not gonna do them in the sim either. But to do a side slip, all right, we're way high, right? So pull your power out. You want rudder into the wind. The wind is left to right here. So we want rudder into the wind. So the nose is pointing off into the wind. And then we just use aileron here to kind of keep ourselves on center line. And look at that descent rate. But what's interesting is the descent rate gets really, really high, but your airspeed does not increase, right? That's the whole point of a side slip. The other thing to keep in mind with side slips is in a lot of airplanes, this one included, you cannot do side slips with full rudder. So be careful. I mean, look at this. We're plummeting to Earth right now. And our airspeed has not increased at all. So that was actually a perfect use case. I'm going to pull the power out right now. And we'll let that come. That was actually a perfect use case. For the side slip. And when you got too much energy like I do right now, you just hold the nose off. Hold the nose off. Tell yourself, don't land, don't land, don't land. And that's how you land effectively. If you have too much energy, and you have to accept the fact you might go to the end of the runway and have to back taxi. So we'll go one notch of flaps. This is a stop and go. One notch of flaps, mixture and prop full forward, fuel pump is on. Trim is looking good. Takeoff power coming in. And that was smooth as can be, by the way. That whoopsie daisy. I'm the world's worst at flying with the looking backwards. So that was a perfect use case for the slip. Now, because of where we are, I want to... How cool is that? Look at that boat right there. Look at that. That's a pretty cool boat. Wonder what that is. Hopefully we don't fly into a mountain looking at it. Whoop, there we got a problem right here. We got a problem right there. That's an issue. Matter of fact, that other boat's a bit of an issue as well. Alright. Put the nose down here just a little bit. I wonder what that's all about. I've never. I used to see boat issues like that at Flight Sim 2020. Haven't seen that in 2024 yet. Alright, flaps are up. We'll turn our fuel pump off and we'll check our fuel pressure. I was just thinking to myself, the climb is sort of sluggish, but then again, I'm climbing at 120 knots. You want to climb at an indicated airspeed. Usually, in this airplane, you'd want to climb at 100 knots. It's what we call cruise climb. And the point of cruise climb is that 100 knots, the pitch attitude for 100 knots with climb power gives you a good view over the nose to be able to see ahead of you. But also gives you adequate cooling, because you remember these are air-cooled engines. This right here, these are how you cool the engine. Those are the air intakes. And so if you're pitched way up and you're climbing at a slow airspeed, you're not getting much air into the engine, and so therefore you're not cooling the engine very much. Let's switch fuel tanks here. Fuel pump on. Switch tanks. Fuel pump off. Fuel pressure is good. So I was mentioning before we got into St. Maarten, the granddaddy of drivers, like the driver that everybody just goes nuts about. 566.36. I wonder how many people watching this video are on 566.36. Probably half of them. Now, back in the day, I was like everybody else. In the prepared days and the FSX days, if you found a driver that worked, you'd stay with that driver. I don't care if it was for 2 years. I also don't think they came out with drivers as often back in those days, 10 years ago, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, as they do now. Or maybe I just didn't pay as much attention to it because I never updated to them. But one of the things I've been looking into, what drivers do. Like, what do they actually do? And that's going to come in a different video, but one of the things that you can get, or some of the things that you can get with old drivers, are stuttering, inefficient use of VRAM, using, too much VRAM, not offloading VRAM after it's, when it should be. Like, for example, a lot of people talk about rebar, resizable bar, right? What is resizable bar? Resizable bar allows your CPU access to larger chunks of your GPU's VRAM in order to run the sim, in order to process the sim, right? Instead of just getting access to little bits of your VRAM at a time, resizable bar gives your system access to larger portions of your VRAM at any one given time. And that makes it more efficient, right? So, but there's this thing now where a lot of people are saying, you know, resizable bar off is better. If resizable bar off is better for your sim setup, something is wrong, because there is no possible way that resizable bar should be better off than it should be on. It just shouldn't be. It logically does not make any sense. So what I think is happening to a lot of people is that they are having these issues, stuttering, VRAM issues, you know, a variety of performance issues. As we come back to 1500. And 15 inches of manifold pressure rather than 2200 RPM, is that people are having these issues because they're using old drivers, really old drivers. I would encourage people, if you're on a driver that's 6 months old or a year old, right? As we go first notch of flaps, we're gonna go fuel pump on. Bring some more power out, and I don't... Yes, I'm trying to slow down. No, I don't want to go... No, I don't want to climb. With second notch of flaps. I would encourage you to update your driver. I really would. And a lot of people will try a new driver and they'll instantly be like, oh, this doesn't work. And we'll do our side slip again. We're definitely high. Still high. So we'll go mixture and prop full forward. Fuel pump is on. Flaps. Let's go full flap. Power out here. Let me pay attention to my flying here for a second. Power's at idle, but I'm almost at 90 knots, so I'm so fast. I've got all the energy I could possibly need. And this might not work real well. Oh, this is bad. You know what? I got what I deserved right there. I got what I deserved right there. I'll tell you something. One thing people don't realize, if you've never flown a real airplane, airplanes moving at speed on the ground, particularly smaller airplanes moving at speed on the ground, can be difficult to handle. They really can be. They're not, it's not a car. It's not meant to be driven on the ground. And you saw me, again, 90 knots, you know, coming down at 1,000 feet a minute, just in that V there, in the approach here. And like an idiot, I just kept barreling on in, thinking, hey, I'll be able to balance this out and we'll be all right. And I'm thinking about getting down prior to Charlie, which is right here. Not thinking about the fact that you've got way too much energy. So way too much energy. The reason I got away with what I got away with in St. Maarten, and I didn't get away with it here, is the length of the runway. Remember what I was saying in St. Maarten? You've got the runway length to be able to not land and just hold it off and bleed off that speed, right? What I don't have here is the runway length to be able to do that. Not to mention the fact that this runway is downhill. You don't really realize it in the sim. This runway is downhill. I mean, you can see it. But when you're here in real life, it's significant. It's a truly a significant downslope. And so I really screwed that one up. Way too much energy. I've got a short runway. The runway is downhill. I mean, in real, this is the thing that bugs me, right? I say to myself, you know what? In real life, I wouldn't have done that. How many pilots have said, I wouldn't do that, and wound up, you know, having something very similar happen to them that just happened to me? That is called a runway excursion. That's what they call that. And look at this. We've got live traffic enabled. And this is the St. Bart's commuter TechNam. How cool is that? Very cool. You know, I'm a big advocate for simming how you fly, training how you fly. That was garbage, terrible. Charles Barkley would refer to that as terrible. It was terrible. All right, mixture and prop full forward. We're gonna do a short field landing out of here. I deserve what I got right there. I deserve to go off the runway, and that's what'll happen oftentimes. Is rather than going off the end of a runway, you'll go off the side of it, because it's the planes are with that much momentum, the amount of momentum that I had, the amount of energy that I had. You know, you get aiming in one direction, but with a bad crosswind correction. Good night, Irene. All right, mixture and prop full forward. Fuel pump is on. Flaps are set. Cannot see final approach, but we're just gonna get out there and get on it. And I did a nice job of that landing, coming right down this hill and giving myself as much of that runway to work with as I could. And I was just thinking the entire time, like, just get it down before Charlie. Get it down before Charlie, because that's the rule in St. Bart's. But the rule of physics supersedes the rule of St. Bart's. So full crosswind correction, toes are on the brakes, takeoff power is coming in. Takeoff power is set, engine instruments are in the green, release the brakes. Alright, sorry guys, my wife just called me. Alright, so let's get ourselves refocused here. So airspeed's 85. I've got 2 notches of flaps in, so I want to just let the nose come down just a little bit, pick up some speed. Then I'll bring that first notch of flaps up. I've got a good airspeed, 100 knots there. I'll bring up that second notch. Bring the power back here. Alright. So, yeah, that was not good. That was not good. But what was good, see, they're right on that 100 knots for the climb. Fuel pump off, fuel pressure is good. And see, we've got climb power set. 100 knots. We're climbing at 800 to 900 feet a minute, which is pretty darn good. And we can see over the cowling in case there's any traffic coming. And we're getting good climb performance, and so that's what you're looking for. 1,500 feet, a little bit of trim. By the way, I never plan what I'm going to talk about. Very rarely, anyway. Things just kind of come as I'm flying. Sometimes I feel like I have inspired flights, and sometimes I feel like, you could have done a better job. My wife has a tendency to call me right in the middle of things. But she's my wife. She's kind of important. So... why are we diving here, it feels like? It's funny how much different the pitch attitude can feel between climb and level flight. Level flight feels pretty aggressive when you've been pitched up at high power for a bit. So, what I was gonna say was, as bad as my landing was, the performance of this this driver sim update combination is just wonderful. Wonderful. And I absolutely love this airplane. Truly, really enjoy flying this airplane. How good that water looks. Look how realistic that looks. So I think they could, there's some things they might be able to do to improve the flight model in this airplane, but honestly, I think this airplane is really, really good. And I know I've said this before, but like, even the landing in St. Maarten, one of the most difficult things to get right with a flight model is the feeling of low airspeed flight, and that's what the flare is, right? So as you're in the flare, and I was, I had too much energy coming down the runway in St. Maarten, well, both times, but in St. Maarten, and I was just holding the nose off. You're kind of what I call playing the trombone with the yoke, like pulling it back, just kind of feathering it a little bit back and forth. It's totally a feel thing. It's absolutely a feel thing and nothing else. Like, you can't teach it. You can't. I mean, you can teach it to an extent, but it's a feel thing. And as you get slower, there's less air moving over the airfoil, which is the wing, and less air moving over the ailerons, the flaps, etc. So your flight controls become less effective as you're going slower, and your speed in the flare, your speed is decreasing. It's not even constant. So you've got this kind of constantly changing feel as the airplane slows down, and being able to kind of create that in a flight model is probably pretty challenging, I would think. And they've done a really nice job with this airplane. It just that's one of the things for me as a real pilot that I notice a tremendous amount in planes that don't do it well, is that the kind of flight and ground effect, right? Ground effect is when you are within a wing's length distance or altitude from the ground. So when you're within that distance, I forget what the dimensions on the Cherokee are, but when you're in that distance from the ground, you know, what is it, maybe 30 feet, 35 feet, the air interacting with the ground and with your airplane at the same time changes the way the airplane handles. It's called ground effect, because the ground has an effect on the aerodynamics, and it's tricky, and it's very, very difficult to model, very, very difficult to do well, judging by the fact that there's not many airplanes that handle very realistically in that regime, that flight regime, as we like to say. But this one does a really nice job of it. Fantastic airplane. Also happens to be one of my favorite airplanes. See, that's my problem though. Right there is I tend to, maybe it's me, just I maybe put too much back pressure while I'm trying to slow down. I'm doing it without looking at the airspeed indicator and the vertical speed indicator. I just have this tendency to like pull some power out and try to hold level without looking. But I always come back to the instruments, and the VSI is like climbing at 800 feet a minute, which is no good. Alright, there's second notch of flaps. Bring some more power out here. And I'm going to let the airplane drop. Normally I wouldn't let it come down like this, but I need to because I am too high. Take a look down. Final here. Final looks clear. I'm going to have a bit of a tailwind. See, again, holding the nose up too much. We'll let it drop. Not that much. But one of the things, you always want to be aware of what the wind is doing. Because it's going to have an effect on your life. You know, an effect on what you're doing. And I have a tailwind here. I'm going to pull power pretty much all the way out. Mixture and prop full forward, fuel pump is on. I want one more notch of flaps. There we go. I want to start turning in early because I know I've got that tailwind. And this is technically an unstabilized approach. See how I got see how I'm through center line there? Now I want to bring some power in because I don't want to get too... That was some poor flying, and you know what that was again? That's simply being too high. I am flying poorly today. And for those of you saying today, I take your point. Alright, let's get this settled here. Power's out. I'm gonna accept a long landing here. Beaver now. Ground effect, floating, 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 floating. Rudder and aileron. I will get it slowed down. Get the mixture out. And see, that distance that I needed to make that landing, I didn't have it in St. Barts. Didn't have anywhere near it in St. Barts. The only way, the only reason I didn't wind up on the beach is because I wound up in the grass. And I'm not making a crosswind correction, which is terrible. See that crosswind right there? That is not good. So you want to keep a full crosswind correction in on the ground. You see that wind is coming from this side. You want to keep a full correction into that wind. Now, I only assume this is live traffic. Pump is on. We'll go one notch of flaps. Yeah, see, that's that might be St. Bart's executive. But I'm not gonna sit here waiting for him. Actually know one of the guys who flies for them. With that crosswind correction out now. Alright, mixture and pop full forward. Runway is clear in both directions. Got a notch of flaps. Bring in that left crosswind correction as we get out here on the runway. It's a stiff wind. The ground handling for crosswind corrections is much better in Flight Sim 24. Much, much better in Flight Sim 24 than it is in Flight Sim 2020. That was like a perfect crosswind right there. Perfect crosswind takeoff. You want the crosswind correction. You want to let it out as you speed up, because as you're accelerating, your ailerons are gonna be more effective. And so you want to let that correction out. You don't need as much of it as you get going faster, and your ailerons are more effective. But ideally, you want to be releasing that correction, the last bit of that correction, as you leave the ground, which is what we did. So that was a pretty darn good crosswind takeoff right there. If I do say so myself, which I have done. There's 1,000 feet. We'll go fuel pump off. Fuel pressure is good. And we'll bring up that notch of flaps. But at least I did something right today. And honestly, this driver and sim combo and sim update combo are awesome. Now see, when we're climbing at 90 knots, you see how we have such lower visibility over the nose than when we were climbing before at 100 knots. And that's what it's all about. That's why you want to be at 100 rather than 90. You just get that little bit more visibility over the nose to look for traffic. That's what you're looking for. And birds, for that matter. Hitting a bird will ruin your day. So but anyway, that was a good comparison to what it looked like at 100 knots earlier coming out of St. Barts. So let's see if we could get at least one decent landing in today. The landing in St. Maarten was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't great, but I liked the side slip. The side slip was pretty good. But what I'm going to look for in this landing here is I'm making a nice landing. I'm making a crappy landing. Hello, boat. So in other news, a week from today, I will be going here. Taking Mrs. Island Sim Pilot back to Anguilla for our first anniversary. We're only gonna stay for we're gonna stay for seven nights, and we weren't going to because, for those of you who know, our dog has been sick for the last year since we were in Anguilla last time. And we didn't want to go away. Fuel pump coming on. Didn't want to go away. Ooh, I sort of get that right there. Entering kind of the airport environment here in Anguilla quite a bit. I wonder if it's like a border thing with the airport scenery. Because honestly, like, I get that exact stutter quite often, and the rest of this flight has been so smooth. See, again, I'm climbing here. I don't want to be climbing. Alright. You know why you're climbing? You're climbing because you have the energy to do so. So therefore, I am going to pull some power out, slow the airplane down. But we decided, you know what? I mean, life is short anyway. Yes, we want to be with the dog, and we don't want to be away from him while he's not. I mean, he's doing really superbly well, actually. Very, very well. But at the same time, you know, he could also not be doing well soon. But the bottom line is, life is to be lived, and I don't want to skip a trip to Anguilla. Just don't. So, get the nose down a little bit. So I want 85 knots. This thing is so realistic. There is a color difference right here in this water. This is the salt pond in Anguilla. There is also no steamship or no cargo ship in the salt pond in Anguilla. There just isn't. And again, we got pushed through final because of the wind. All right, now we'll go full flaps. And we'll let the plane come down as we crawl back over the center line here. Let that nose come down until I see at least one red. But I don't like dropping this much. Alright. You're at 75 knots and 1,000 feet a minute down. That's not good. And this is what you can, this is the tendency that I have. Mixture and prop full forward, 2 pumps on. Flaps are set. This is the tendency that I have in real flying and sim flying, is doing opposites, right? Like, so I just had 2 hot landings, right? 2 fast landings. And so then what happens? You're trying to correct and you overcorrect, and I got slow. Alright, power's all the way out. There's ground effect. Just hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Alright, that wasn't too bad. But still, you pull the yoke back. Aerodynamic braking, baby. When you pull the yoke back, watch what happens. Well, see the elevator go up like that, the stabilator that gets into the wind. That's what we call aerodynamic braking. So, if you want to watch a video on how to land well, don't watch this one. One stutter throughout the entire flight, which was the one coming into the airport environment here over top of the airport in Anguilla. Everything else super smooth. Landing light coming off. Everything else was super smooth. It looks for all the world that we're gonna miss Hurricane Aaron here on Anguilla, which is wonderful news. Gonna pass to the north. It doesn't look like it's gonna hit any island, which is great. But you can see that's the weather's starting to change. So, mixture to idle, cutoff, throttle is idle, set the parking brake. Lights coming off, turn the fuel pump off eventually. Flaps coming up, and avionics master off, mags off, master and battery switches off, and we are all set. So the driver is good. 580.97. Think about what I said about drivers. Don't stick with a driver that's a year old because it's a year old, or because it's doing well for you. You're giving up performance. You're inviting problems by doing that. And what I would suggest, I didn't finish this earlier, what I would suggest, a lot of people update their driver. If they haven't updated it in a long time, they update it. They say, oh wait, you know what, this one's no good, and they immediately go back to the driver that they were using. Clear your shader caches, delete your rolling cache, and just restart all that stuff before you decide whether a driver is good or bad. You know, and fly for a good hour or 2 hours and give it a chance to rebuild the shader caches before you just pack it in and be like, no, I'm just going back to my old driver. That's my recommendation. I think a lot of people are having performance issues because they're using old drivers that they think are the greatest thing, or they're too afraid to update. I get it. I've been there. I just think it's the wrong approach nowadays. Any questions, comments, feedback, I welcome them in the comment section below. I hope everybody's doing very well, and we will talk soon.